You're listening to the Ready or Not podcast with me, Mabel Golden. We're here to share the stories of those living intentionally and building a life they love so that you can be inspired to do the same. Today I'm sat with Thomas Blakemore, who is a teacher here in the UAE and who I found on social media through his content that is all about helping others do the same, teaching here in the UAE. Thank you, Thomas, for joining me here on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. So I would love to start this episode by talking about your move. So when was it that you moved to the UAE and where did you move from?
So I moved to the UAE 4 years ago.
Okay, same as me then.
Yeah. So we've just come to the end of another academic year here in the UAE, which marks, officially 4 years.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, and it was today, right?
Yeah. So it's amazing to be able to reflect back on that journey.
Yeah, and the time goes so quick, doesn't it?
Crazy quick.
Yeah, it's like on another level because I feel the same when I'm looking back. People ask me how long we've been in the UAE and I'm like, whoa, it's kind of weird. But yeah, so congrats on completing your 4th year.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your decision to move. Was it a snap decision? Was it something you were gearing up for a long time? Was it something you were quite anxious about?
Sure.
I love to hear this from all of the guests that have moved to the UAE.
Yeah, so for me, it was more of a case of being in the UK and the situation that I was in the UK over the 2 years teaching in the UK. So I was at a stage of my life where I was ready for independence. I'd spent some time at university.
Okay.
And then been away at university, amazing time, and then came back to my hometown Telford and then taught there for 2 years. But of course, as part of that process, moved back in with my family. And although they're lovely people, I was ready after the second year to have some independence.
Yeah.
And there was always this niggling feeling in the back of my head of like, you could probably go and explore the world. There was kind of, for me, a bit of a love of travel anyway. And I'd kind of burnt out all the European cities.
Yeah.
All the Ryanair flights. I'd ticked all the cheapest ones off. And then I was like, right, okay, where else would I like to go? Well, I like to go to these different places.
Yeah.
But I also know a lot about teaching in the UAE. I had a neighbour who taught in Dubai, and I was hearing all these different things about how they were finding it. I was like, oh, this sounds good. So for me, it was a kind of I'm going to go and check this place out. So I came around on holiday.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I like this.
Yeah.
Then as soon as I went on the holiday, came back from Dubai, I knew then it was like, right, I'm going to go and research. I'm going to type up and find out everything and start trying to get the job. Yeah. I looked into things before then, but I don't think I took it very seriously. I just kind of sent out a few applications, see what comes out. And then, it was when I came back from the holiday that I was like, no, I'm going to take this seriously now. That's where I want to be.
That's cool. That was going to be one of my questions actually, is did you know anybody that was already teaching? Because I think to a lot of people, they almost just don't realise that there's this whole other life, or that was for me anyway. I just kind of thought, England, that's the centre of the universe for me. And I just didn't really know that there was this whole other life, somewhere else in the world. That's really cool. That must have been a great feeling when you got offered the job and everything, a lot of excitement.
It absolutely was. I was in a fortunate position after I started to take it seriously, where I really knuckled down with the applications, and then I was given 2 different offers at the same time, and I was like, okay, this is a real privilege. And then that's when I kind of knew, this is the right thing for me, when I got that offer through.
Really exciting. And was there any nerves as well, or all excitement?
The process of moving to Dubai, there was absolutely. I think one of the challenging things is, though, like the feelings of nervousness and excitement are the same, the butterflies in the stomach, all those sorts of things. So I think I was initially like, oh, I've got so many different things to do. Because being a teacher out here, you need all your decrees attested, lots of different paperwork, like the attestation, but also looking at other things starting to pack. So I was like, okay, daunted by the initial process, but then also like, oh, I'm going back to that place that I visited. Yeah. So it was starting to be that excitement. Okay, I'm going to be here. I'll be able to do that, and building that excitement. So bit of both, nervousness and excitement.
Both. And when you're thinking like 4 years on, what is there anything that you kind of think that you'd want to tell your past self, kind of, maybe misconceptions about moving, or I don't know. I think it's really nice, like you said, to be able to reflect on that 4 years. Is there anything that you wish you could go back and tell that Thomas that was, prepping and going through all that?
I think for me, it was more of listening to the wrong people, listening to other people's perceptions of Dubai, the Middle East in general, and kind of other people have one perception of a certain place, and you kind of need to take a step back and do your own research. And then having someone who was working here did help. And I think the world of social media, internet has helped build other people's perception in a better way. But then having people to talk to as part of that research process is important, and making sure they're actually people who have experienced the place that you're going to go to, whether it be Dubai or another place.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you've just got people, for example, my head teacher telling you, oh yeah, you're going to go and teach there. That's great, but are you aware of this? Like, are you aware of de-skilling yourself? Well, that just wasn't true. Because you come over here, you learn lots of techie skills.
Yeah.
Because schools are really well equipped over here.
Yeah.
So then you start to build, okay, so that's one thing, is kind of distancing yourself from the misconceptions and that kind of thing. In fact, I feel like we could do a whole episode on the misconceptions about Dubai and all of that. And then even it's really interesting in your industry and your niche to find even things like that are specific to the role. Even that is misconceptions for people that are planning their move. And then I think it's almost quite nice how now you're a content creator guiding people and kind of giving your experience. And that must feel good. Yeah,
to be able to help people to kind of understand your journey and be inspired by it.
It absolutely is. It's one of those things where you take a step back from what you've achieved. My initial moving process to Dubai was like, it wasn't the easiest. So things weren't perhaps set up in the way, or I just didn't know the right things that I would tell myself, basically. And as a result, me moving here, I made a ton of mistakes, just loads. So then I kind of needed to take a step back and think about those things.
I remember when I made the decision to move, one of the first things I did was log on to YouTube to find out a little bit what life was like, because I didn't have any friends that lived here or any, not a soul. I didn't know anybody. So you knew one person, I guess, but still that is not a network of people. That is, when you're moving continent, you need to kind of build a whole new friend group, a whole new network. So how did you find that? And especially I'm interested to hear from your perspective as a guy as well, because I get a lot of questions on my Instagram about people that are looking to move to Dubai, and they're quick to say, oh well, it's easier for girls, which it might be, but so I'm especially interested to hear how your experience has been with this. So
I had one neighbour who was a friend, however a family friend, distant family friend, so it was nice to be from that perspective, but it's not someone who I would talk to regularly. When I first moved out here to Dubai, I kind of knew of people who had moved to Dubai. One of them was someone who I knew from university, and it had been a few years since I'd seen maybe 5 years since I'd seen this person.
Okay, so quite distant acquaintances, really, no besties.
No, absolutely. We had a shared hobby of basketball, and one of the things I found, it can just be the types of people who you meet. However, that person in particular was really receptive and was like, let's go out. Let's go out. And the first day that I was there, we went night out somewhere. I think it was Rixos, JVR. I think it was something like that. And I spent far too much money, and it scared me. It's like, I can't do this every day. I need to move home. But then through that process, he then said the next day, I'm also going on this brunch. Would you like to come on this brunch? So then from that brunch, I went to this new brunch. I think it was We Brunch, which I've been there. Brilliant. Went to that, but they were doing like a teacher meetup, and we kind of just gate crashed this different schools. First brunch. And then, so through that process, met lots of different teachers from a completely different school, which was nice because then you have that break of school and things like that. But that's also where I met my partner.
Oh, really? So, that's a really nice story. That's funny. I met my boyfriend at brunch as well. At Wanderlust Brunch. So
I love it.
That's a tip for anybody listening.
And that's we're still together. And it was, fantastic. So then, I've met a friend, I've met my partner, and then I also started to, from those, it depends how much you want to say yes to things.
Yes, 100%. You took the words right out my mouth there, because I was going to say my biggest piece of advice for people when they're in a new city, they don't know anyone, you've got to be a yes man, and you've got to just say yes, even if you're like, I I don't know if they're my kind of people or whatever. You've just got to leave that, say yes, because you never know, they might introduce you to someone so
it was one of those cases, especially with the brunch. But then from there I met a few different people, and then we started to I went on different nights. There was like another person who I knew from home, from the gym, but it wasn't someone who would, it was a case of, would you like to come on this brunch? It's very brunch orientated.
Yeah, true, it is. And I think that's another thing that's kind of, it does seem, I think from the outside, to seem like all we do is go for drinks and go for brunch, but it's not always the case, but it is quite a safe option, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a safe option to meet just different people. I suppose if you want to meet people who are interested in a similar thing to you, you need to go to those specific things.
Yeah,
so if you
want like a sports team, for example, like you just
said.
Yeah.
Go to a gym, does yoga.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things.
Exactly.
But for meeting general people, just meeting...
You just got to put yourself out there, which might seem a bit scary, but at the end of the day, it's going to pay off, isn't it? Because, to fully enjoy somewhere like Dubai, especially where there's so much to do, you've got to have a nice network to spend it with.
Absolutely. And then once you've said yes to so many different things, you start to build up a friendship group, and then you know also when to say no, because when you initially move out, you can't just say yes to everything.
True.
Because you have a budget, or should have a budget.
Whatever. Yeah.
And then you start to go, right, okay, well, I am not too interested in going to a brunch every weekend. Those people are. Okay, this person's more interested in also going for walks down the beach, whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you start to find what I call your people. So you meet a large group to start off with, and then you go, okay, I'm spending a lot of time around this person. And then that kind of comes naturally. The new people will come to Dubai because Dubai is a very transient place.
Yeah.
And then you'll start to meet those people who are similar to yourself. So you find friends, they go. But then I also think as an expat who's been here for 4 years, it's also important as an expat to introduce new people to the country. One thing I would say is that people were really receptive to me as a newbie to Dubai, inviting me to different things.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to have that willingness, and I think everyone understands what it's like to be a newbie in Dubai.
That's so true. And I think that's why it's easier to make friends here in somewhere like Dubai, where it's 80% expats versus, imagine kind of going out in Manchester or whatever. I'm trying to think back to when I was working in Manchester, and I kind of wouldn't have that same attitude to meeting new people. I'd be much too afraid, but here it's much, exactly as you said, much more receptive.
It's kind of like everyone
all in the same boat.
Everyone understands what it's like to step off the plane, to go to your hotel, apartment, whatever it is, and go, what have I done? I don't know anyone.
Yeah,
so exactly. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, and nobody wants to be in that position. So
absolutely.
And I think, for anybody that's listening and that is, about to make that move or aiming to make that move soon, and that doesn't know anybody here, they shouldn't feel like they need to have anything to worry about, because there really is an overwhelming attitude of that. But as well as that, there's also content creators like yourself that are putting out a lot of great content for people that are, wanting to teach out here. Can you tell me a little bit about your decision to make content for Teach Travel Triumph?
Sure. So for me, content creation was something that I started when I was back in the UK. It was only something that I took.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was only something that I started taking seriously when I moved to Dubai. In fact, my first videos on YouTube were from that holiday where I came out here. I went,
cool.
Yeah, so I'm going to make these videos for my class back in the UK. So I worked in an area where perhaps the children who were in my class wouldn't have those opportunities to go to Dubai and other places. So I was like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
The kids were like, take some photos. I was like, I'll make a video.
Yeah.
So we started the process of, I started the process of just filming lots of different things, making content. Teach Travel Triumph came from me thinking that I needed some sort of branding. I had no clue of any sort of marketing, YouTube. I was
content,
just like, I need something to say. So what do? I teach.
Yeah.
I like to travel. Oh, that's 2 words. I need something else.
Yeah.
Triumph. Yeah. Okay. That's what it started off as. And then as I've evolved through my content creation, I've realized actually those words kind of associate quite well. Teachers tell stories through their journey, which ultimately helps everyone in the world triumph. That's cool. That makes that attachment.
100%.
But essentially what Teach Travel Triumph is a way for me to help people, whether that be through teaching or helping through people globally with small challenges so that they can quote unquote triumph. We focus on lots of different content, such as supporting new teachers, supporting teachers to come to Dubai, supporting individuals who are interested in coming to Dubai and the UAE. And then also talking about some of the challenges which teachers face too, whether that be associated around mental health, those things such as imposter syndrome and additional things, so that we can work collaboratively in education to make an impact. So that's kind of where Teach Travel Triumph stems from. And now we've branched out into YouTube, to TikTok, any new platform that the kids are kind of like, oh, this is an interesting platform. I'm like, I want to understand that. So TikTok's the new one.
It is, yeah.
Starting to make, I feel like when you create a platform, you understand that platform, whether it's safe for children, so that you can also, right, okay, you also need to be careful of this. So the kids aren't just going like, well, how do you know that? Well, actually, this is what I've seen.
So true.
So there's lots of different there's lots of different reasons for starting that. But ultimately, it's something that I've created just to help people. Essentially, that's my why. And
I bet you 4 years ago would have found something like that so helpful. I always kind of think that whenever I'm putting out some content, and I think, okay, what would I have found useful, when I was making that move. So that's definitely a good why. And anybody that's listening, I definitely recommend you go and check Thomas out on his social platforms. I'll leave them in the link in the description. When you are making a life decision, such as I'm going to move country, or I'm going to start putting out content to help inspire people, do you ever feel imposter syndrome, or do you ever feel like you have a routine to prepare yourself?
Yeah, I suppose in the past, especially in teaching, imposter syndrome is certainly something that I've felt. With that being that I'm not good enough to do the role which I'm ultimately qualified to do so. Especially with whether you're looking at teaching or moving abroad, that initial process of coming over and being like, well, I don't think I'm the right person for this, hits the majority of people who come over. I think for me, one of the big things that's helped me in the past is looking at the facts. So if I look at the situation of teaching, a lot of teachers will go into the boat of, oh, I'm not a good teacher, I'm not built for this, or I'm finding this challenging, I'm not the right person. But really, for me, what's helped is looking at the facts, what's happened to make me feel this way, talking to a person, and then, so looking at the facts. So for example, if I'm feeling those feelings of, oh, I'm not good enough to be a teacher, look at the facts. Well, actually, no, you've got a degree in primary school teaching. You've got years of experience behind you. The children love you, or at least, like to think so. Again, that's imposter syndrome kicking in, going like, oh, wait, do the children actually know? Well, they send you cards all the time. So go back to the facts of they give you cards.
Evidence.
It's that evidence of like, well, that's what the people, that's how the facts back that up. But then also talking to people in terms of like, okay, I'm feeling that way. For a guy, that can sometimes be a challenge in teaching, because you don't always have the individuals around, especially in primary school, quite female dominated. So it can be a challenge to open up to people in terms of like, I'm feeling this way about what I'm doing. Whether that's teaching abroad, it can be a bit of a challenge to go like, I'm finding this challenging. But going back to those facts of actually, no, you've done these things, so actually you're doing okay, is important too.
I really like that. I really like that as something for the listeners to take from that, is to look at the facts, because that's so true. And something I would almost add to that is that, it's seeing other people do it, like anybody that's listening to this or watching some of your content, seeing other people doing that and think, oh, he can do it, so I can, type thing. And that kind of, you can apply that to whatever your industry is, whether it's teaching or starting a YouTube channel. It's almost like it's really nice to see someone else doing it, to kind of think, okay, this is possible, and maybe I can do that as well. So I really like that as a kind of way to tackle imposter syndrome, which is something that everybody gets all the time, and I don't think it does go away. But
absolutely.
That's really interesting to hear as well, for teacher industry specific as well. So what advice would you give to someone that is, maybe they're listening to this podcast and thinking, I am ready for this, I'm ready to step into that next stage of my life, whether that is teaching or whether it is just moving to the UAE or maybe somewhere else? What would you say to that person?
Sure. So I think for me that answer is kind of multifaceted, in terms of the way you approach that initial situation. You've got those little feelings of, okay, I'm interested in teaching abroad, teaching in the UAE. Okay, now what? So one of the first things, as we've spoken about, one of the first things you'll do is go to somewhere like Google or YouTube. So you begin that research process. So the first answer I would give to that is research. But when we look at research, the big thing for research is not just to research, okay, let's teaching in Dubai. No, I think when we look at research, you first have to reflect on yourself as an individual, because that's going to help you with the process of being able to come out here. So you've got to look at yourself and your personal situation of, okay, how am I finding things at the moment? What am I enjoying, for example, with my current job, whether it's teaching or not? What are the things that are going really well? What are the things that I want to do in the future? Because those steps of reflecting on yourself first will then open up the ability to start looking at location. So then when you go, okay, what places fit my personal goals of, for example, my personal goals and interests. So you're looking at your interests. Well, I'm really interested in going to the beach. I'm really interested in going on nice green walks. Well, Dubai's not going to be for you. If every weekend you go on lovely green walks around nature, Dubai is probably not quite the location in terms of going on those natural green walks. You can go on lots of lovely hikes around mountains, but in terms of surrounding yourself with rainforest, with woods, not quite. So, but you need to be honest with that process. Okay, I do like going to the woods sometimes, but actually I like the sound. I like going to the beach sometimes too. A bit like my situation. Okay, well then Dubai is an option for you, because your life isn't just going for walks in the woods, for example. So once you've reflected on yourself, you can start to look at the location, and does the location fit your personal preference? And then you go job specific. So from there, you've looked at the location. Okay, I've decided that Dubai is a place because I'm really interested in being able to finish school, go to the beach, do whatever those different things are. I'm really interested in the approach that they have in this country, whether it's around education or that job. Okay, now let's look at the different locations where I could work. So if for me as a teacher, then it's school specific. So I'm starting to look at the different schools that match my own personal reflections of the schools that I like. So it's kind of that looking at those different layers.
Yeah, I really like how your brain is so analytical almost, because that does make so much sense. It's logical, isn't it? You know, when people have these kind of ideas and they're feeling inspired by the people that they follow or their friends that have maybe moved out, and, you know, they're thinking, okay, where do I even start? But you break it down and you do your research, and that's the best place to start. So
and that's only just come from my own reflection. I was a highly emotive person when I moved out here, and that's based on my own reflections as a content creator who helps people. And looking into the boots of people who would want to come and teach out here, kind of going, okay, what steps would I do now 4 years on? That's the steps logically. As looking at psychology, we're more likely to step into that emotive brain and go, Dubai, sweet. Looking back, actually, Tom, you do enjoy going to the woods now and again, and that is something you miss. So it's one of those things where you've just got to be honest, got to reflect and look logically as well as in an emotional manner, because it's very easy to look at people on social media and go like, I want their life.
True.
Without kind of stepping back and going, okay, but would that life suit me? So
true. I think that actually is a really nice place to lead into a next question that I wanted to ask you, which is about what you kind of plan for yourself in the future, and has moving, you know, from the UK to the UAE, has that now in your mind, you know, maybe you're totally satisfied here, which is an amazing place to live, or in your mind are you thinking there's next somewhere else? Are you even going through that process for the next place already?
So for me, if I'm completely honest with you, after the 4 years, I'm still enjoying the UAE. It's great. I have family in the UK. My partner has family in the UK. And being here in the UAE, you realise, like I said, 4 years, just how fast time goes.
So quickly.
And it's only when family, whether it's other people's family or your own, it's only when you see them grow up that you start to go, okay, this is how much time is passing. You know, you see the developments. I have a niece, and crazy how quick they grow, and I'm missing out on that. So that's where for me, I'm kind of at that stage of, is it time to spend a bit more time close to home with family? That's where my head's at the moment. In terms of professional career, I still like teaching.
Yeah.
I still like being in the classroom with the kids.
Yeah.
There's always going to be an element of that in my life in terms of being in the classroom, because I don't feel like I get a feeling like I do with teaching, being in the classroom from anything else.
Yeah.
Even content creation.
Really.
It's completely, you get rewarding from content creation. It's lovely when you get messages from different people.
Yeah.
But it's exactly the same in the classroom in many ways.
Yeah.
But then you've got that extra layer of emotive and feeling like you're making that impact live. So there's kind of that too. Sometimes a bit harder with content creation to see the impact you have, whereas with children being in the classroom, you see it every day, which is amazing.
That's really nice. For me as well, like I said, I've been here 4 years as well, and I totally agree. It's gone really quick, but I feel very comfortable and you know, at home here. I feel like I've explored every corner of the UAE, all the hikes, all the beaches, etc. But I do love it. I love that feeling of exploring a new place. And for you as well, with your interest in travel, what do you feel like you want your next travel adventure to be? And do you feel like kind of you experiencing your new life in Dubai has inspired that?
Yeah, so I certainly think in the past, the journey of teaching in another place has been something that's opened up. And that's come about from my own travels. Obviously, as I started the podcast, I spoke about the interest in travel being one of the reasons I moved to Dubai. So I'd kind of explored all those European cities. So being here in Dubai, I've taken advantage of where this location is.
The middle of the world.
Traveling to, so many different places.
Yeah.
Up until the challenging situation, pandemic, etc., lots of travel was going on, and I was really enjoying traveling to different locations such as Hong Kong. And those different, Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand, all those different Southeast Asian countries. And there was an initial spark in terms of, this is cool. Because then you have got those green walks.
And it's just that
completely different
feeling of immersing yourself in something new. It's such a great feeling, isn't it?
Absolutely. You have got that different culture, all those different elements. One of the things that kind of stopped me from doing that is the family. So Dubai is that bit closer to the UK.
It is.
Hong Kong's that bit further. So for me, that was that challenge, that approach there. But being a teacher, it is a privilege because you still have those holidays to be able to go and explore those different places that you are interested in. For example, obviously with it being the end of this academic year now, you've got 6 weeks-ish where you can go, okay, I want to go and explore these different places. Many teachers will choose to go home and spend time with family. That's a privilege too. But you've also got the opportunity to go, okay, I'm interested in working in this area, for example, Hong Kong, whether it's somewhere else, Kazakhstan. I know a friend has moved to Kazakhstan.
Really?
Wow. Really exciting. Yeah. But it's part of that process of exploration, and you can do that as a teacher, whether you visit for a little bit of time or whether you move there completely. So being a teacher definitely opens up a lot of avenues to move to a range of different countries. For me at the moment, UAE is my base. I enjoy it here.
Yeah.
There's that challenge of, will I move back? Will I not? But being a teacher, your avenues, especially kind of in that qualified teacher position, lots of different avenues of where you can go and teach. And I'd go back to that research and think about whether those locations are right for you. Yeah,
and whether that's going to be your next step and the world is your oyster, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Thomas, it's been amazing to talk to you today, and I think everybody listening will have found that really, really valuable. So I really appreciate your time, and thank you for joining me on the Ready or Not podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.